Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be having a look at the US dollar index against various other currencies, and this is for the week commencing Monday, the 9th of March 2020. And first of all, starting and having a look at the US dollar index. So one of the things that has happened, obviously, there's been quite a bit of volatility in the markets. We've actually had a very, very big sustained move on the US dollar index, and where it becomes very noticeable is looking at the monthly time frame. So a bit of a bearish rejection candle off 100 last month, and we can see we've broken the low, and we've broken the low of so we've broken the low of last month's candle, we've broken the low of at least in the last couple of months, and so this uptrend is now officially done. And actually, if you recall, in one of my previous videos in the last couple of weeks, I was talking about how the weekly was looking more bearish than bullish, so it appeared to have followed through on that, and we're starting to head low. So we're starting to come down and test these levels around 95, 94, 93, but at the moment it is looking much more likely to continue to head lower than to find any real support to this point in time. But what it is due to do is a retracement. Okay, it's a very overextended move to the downside. I'll be looking for pullbacks this week and potential shorting opportunities to the downside. It's actually the same when I go and have a look at euro dollar. Euro dollar has done some really big moves to the upside, very unusual. The problem with this is that this is abnormal. And in fact, what we had even before that was we had a very long sustained move without any retracements, and this one has actually just dwarfed the previous one, which in itself was quite an overextension. So in other words, it's made a relatively extended move look even small by comparison, and you can see we've actually found some really good strong support here. There's some bullish divergence off these lows here, finding some strong support close to 1.1 and 1.09. So at this point, we've also broken the highs in November, and I'm expecting price to continue to test and move a lot higher. But I am going to be looking for pullbacks into previous levels and pullbacks into the moving averages over this week. It's definitely overextended, and I'm expecting that pullback to actually happen this week. I know the markets are in a very fragile state, and that anything can really happen. But at this point, it's already overdue. So over the next 5 days, I'd be amazed if it continued. But of course, anything can happen. I would be expecting a pullback this. Next, having a look at sterling. So sterling was a little bit weaker last week, and this week has managed to be pushed higher by the weaker US dollar. So this isn't necessarily sterling strength. This is much more to do with dollar weakness, but it's also started to break those previous highs. And really looking at the monthly is going to give us a lot of indication here. So this is pretty cool. Looks as though it's found some nice support close to 1.3 and 1.275. And this may well be the setup for a renewed uptrend to the upside, which means that the monthly would now officially go into an uptrend, and we would start eyeing up 1.3, 1.35, and 1.4. So that is kind of cool, because it means we'd obviously start getting stronger sterling in the UK. That's pretty cool. Looking at the Aussie dollar and the Kiwi dollar, this is where it gets really interesting, as of course you can see here just this really strong rejection candle, that very strong bullish divergence, all of this implying that we're likely to see this now actually potentially climb higher on the back of that weaker US dollar. Same thing, actually, same reaction off Kiwi. So we can see overnight we actually had that reaction. Chances are that there's just been a lot of stories, obviously, about toilet paper shortages, hand sanitizer shortages, so on and so forth. So it's possible that the markets, individuals in the markets, have obviously been home over the weekend, have got all really worked up, and have decided to hit the markets running as soon as they open on Sunday night. And so we've had massive moves overnight, which we'll see when we have a look at the global indices. Then looking at dollar yen, we can see a much weaker dollar aggressively move lower. This is a very big move compared to moves that we've had in previous months. And usually this is because the Japanese tend to trade their own currency and counter trade as well. So they try to keep the price within a certain range, obviously because they depend heavily on exports. And you can see that massively weaker dollar, I beg your pardon, has just pushed it right down. And so we started to break out of this range. And this is significant because actually we've been within that range for several years. Okay, so this is quite significant. We're coming down to test these levels of support, and again we will be due for a retracement there. So although I expect and anticipate that the trend for the dollar will be weaker, I'm also going to be looking for pullbacks to look for shorting opportunities. Same thing here, dollar Swissy, we can see again a weaker dollar versus that Swissy. We can see we've broken through support in the last week and started to head lower. Dollar CAD, let's have a look and see. The move has been so significant, it's just interesting here to see how much, in this particular case, we've actually had a much weaker Canadian dollar as well. And so that counter to the weaker US dollar, it's actually managed to climb. Usually, it's interesting, we usually see some kind of a correlation between the US dollar and its major partners here. But in fact, here we could see that generally dollar yen, dollar Swissy, dollar CAD are kind of doing their own things generally, but in the last week, for the most part, most have fallen in line with a weaker US dollar, with the exception of dollar CAD, which appears to show the Canadian dollar has weakened so much that a weaker US dollar didn't really make a difference.